In this little space, while I stood here by the window, hearing from a long distance poems of Ho Swan Huang, the sun passed over, the room darkened, strike a match, light a candle. So I'm reading these poems to these plants here.
It is better than I know.
The project is called Poetry Overheard, so I figure they can overhear me just as well as anybody else. And I'm here at the end of 14th Street, at the end of 8 days progressing across 14th Street.
So when did you start?
I started on Friday 9 days ago, and I started at dawn, and I read for about an hour and a half to 2 hours every day and made my way across 14th Street.
So what was about first day? What was your experience of the first day?
The first day was, my experience of was waiting for the sun to rise and waiting to see the sunrise. And because there's a huge power station at the end of 14th Street there, I knew that the sun had risen because I could see light, but I never saw the sunrise until I finished and sort of got on a bus to leave across 14th Street. The experience that day was really, I was just so happy to be there. I don't know, I was just so happy to be there. And, you know, people were waking, people were getting their coffee, a few people, you know, waiting for the bus, just life starting on 14th Street. So, that was my first day. Then, as I went on, it was just, my sister came from Ireland she came so that her visit would coincide with this. So she wasn't there that first day, she was having her sleep in, but on all the other days, she was with me, and so that was kind of really a beautiful part of it as well. She's my best audience in many ways. She corrects me, she's my fact checker, she said, no, he didn't die in that hospital, he died somewhere else. So it's been fun, it's a lot of fun, because a lot of my poems are relating back to my childhood, you know, or drawing on those experiences that we have before we're 7, 8, 9, before. So, but then in terms of the people on 14th Street, like last night I was standing reading just there between 9th and 10th, and I'm just reading. You know, the project is Poetry Overheard. It's not declaiming the poetry. It's not getting people's attention in that way. There are plenty of things getting people's attention on 14th Street. There are people jumping out in wolf costumes, sort of handing you things. There's a lot of circus and sort of commercial circus and all kinds of circus going on this street. So my project is more just poetry overheard. The way you'd hear somebody walking along the street with their cell phone or having a conversation or talking to themselves. In fact, now with cell phones, nobody really notices you reading to yourself on the street. It's like even less remarkable than anything. So, but because it's been a project like where I've been on the street for 2 hours or an hour and a half, an hour and 3/4, things begin to happen. Something begins to be created. And last night I was sort of with my back to the sidewalk like this, and I suddenly kind of aware, and I'm not aware of many people on the street, I'm just reading, and there's this girl standing behind me looking at my looking at the poems, and she said, "Oh, you're reading poetry," and I sort of just handed her the poems like this, and she read, just without seamlessly. She was a dancer called Louise Trueheart. She'd been practicing her choreography on Chelsea Piers. And lots of things like that have been happening. The whole thing has put me in a space where it's just intensified that whole living in the moment kind of thing. And another woman was crossing the street another day, and she came towards me and asked me, are there restaurants around here? She was from Long Island. And I said yes. So I said, do you want to hear a poem? And she said, yes, I'd love to hear a poem. So I read a poem, and her sister was down the street and trying to get her to come on. She said, no, I want to listen to the poetry. And then at the end she said, thank you, I really needed that. It's like, it's just, it's changed. I've also been reading poems that came into my safekeeping, as it were, from an acquaintance of a friend, really. Or like New York, people have archives. They go out into the street, like there's nobody to claim them, whatever, when they die. And she died about 7 or 8 years ago, and her collection of poems from the 60s to the 2000s, all in folders by year, sort of came to me. And I've held on to them through 2 moves now. And I thought, she's a New York poet. I could read her on 14th Street. And I'm beginning to look for an archive for her, a place for where her poems could find a home. Her name is Robert O. R-E-B-O-R-T-O-H Faber. People from the 60s and the 70s would know her. She published in Home Planet News and other sort of downtown magazines.
I would like to ask you when the idea was born.
The idea was born when after I spoke to Edwin, who is the curator of this, he's the guest curator of this year's festival. And I was doing a workshop on applying for grants of all things. And I had written something. He said, I like the sound of that. And he said, so it kind of grew from that. I wrote a proposal. The poetry overheard, I just wanted something low-key. And I was standing on the corner of 6th and 14th Street, and I realized this is one of those really major sort of intersections in the city. So much life passing, the subway there. So back a few months ago, I had to put in a photograph. So a friend of mine, Jim Bergeson, who's a photographer, took a photograph of me there, and I sent it in with my application. And the other day, we were there, my sister and I were reading in that exact same spot 6 months later. And we saw, she's just visiting the city, she saw a policeman go down in the subway and come back with somebody under arrest to put into the car right there. It was like life was happening right there. So, creatively, I can't explain it, but it's been amazing. It's just been amazing.
Okay.